Dating after 30 feels unsettling. You're past the age of playing silly courting games but still not ready to give up entirely. That's why I decided to try a nearby dating app a friend suggested. I ended up matching with a 29-year-old woman named Claire. She had dark hair, striking green eyes, and an easy, attractive smile. We agreed to meet at a cozy little cocktail bar just a short walk away. At first, I expected the usual discomfort, like all the dates before her. But Claire, she felt different somehow. When I arrived, she was already seated at the table, wearing a red skirt with a white tank top. She smiled, and I returned it. Conversation flowed immediately. She was sharp, funny, and engaging, making clever jokes instead of dull small talk. And she actually listened. What else could you want after a few drinks? I asked if she wanted to come back to my place. She agreed instantly. I live alone in a fairly nice top-floor apartment with an open layout. When we walked in, she complimented the art, the lighting, even the music I had playing. Then her eyes drifted to my bookshelves, which were mostly bare except for a few books. You don't collect Labubu? The what? Labubu. The designer figures. You've never seen them? She pulled out her phone and showed me her wallpaper. It was a wide-eyed, sharp-toothed little creature that looked like a mix between a rabbit and a goblin. She scrolled through her photos, revealing display cases filled with toys, different colors, sizes, and expressions. Some smiled, others snarled. I have over 70. Everyone is unique. I tried not to laugh. Unique? Those things looked like demon rabbits. Easily the creepiest toys I'd ever seen. Her smile vanished. Her brows tightened, like I'd insulted her deeply. They're beautiful, you just don't understand. I shrugged, figuring it was best to diffuse things. All right, fair enough. Everyone likes different stuff. She stared at me, and I felt a shift. She wasn't the same person from an hour ago. How can you not like them? She asked, as if giving me one last chance to change my answer. I chuckled. Honestly, if one of those ever showed up in my house, I'd probably burn it. That was the moment everything went wrong. Her face went empty, her pupils widening until her eyes looked terrifying. She stood slowly and walked toward the kitchen counter without a word. I watched as she picked up the sharp knife I'd used earlier to cut limes. I laughed nervously. Are you doing something right now? She silenced me, pressing the knife against her lips. I brought you one, she whispered. What? She reached into her large tote bag and pulled out a small figurine, jet black, with glowing red eyes. She set it on the counter beside the knife. I wanted him to meet you. My chest tightened. Okay, Claire. Joke's over. Put the knife down. She didn't move. Her eyes twitched, like she was barely holding herself together. In a low, trembling voice, she said, He heard what you said. You should apologize. I backed away, furious now. I'm not apologizing to some stupid toy just because you're obsessed with it. My phone was on the couch about 10 feet away. I tried to stay calm. Look, it's late. You should leave. She suddenly lunged. I tried to dodge, but she slashed my arm and started screaming that I needed to apologize to her Labubu. I stumbled backward, nearly tripping over the coffee table. I grabbed my phone and locked myself in the bathroom, bracing my body against the door as she kicked and pounded on it like a lunatic. I called 911, hands shaking, and told them the woman I'd brought home was having a breakdown, and I feared for my safety. After about a minute, the banging stopped, but I didn't open the door. I pressed my ear to the wood. I heard whispering. She was talking to someone. No screaming, just hushed murmurs. It was horrifying. 10 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived. I opened the bathroom door slightly and pointed toward Claire, who was now sitting on the couch, clutching the Labubu to her chest like it was priceless. The officers warned her, then one handcuffed her. Her hands were bleeding from hitting the bathroom door so hard. Cotton stuffing covered the couch where she had angrily stabbed the pillows. As they led her away, she kept shouting, How could anyone hate Labubu? Her voice echoed down the hallway, far louder than it should have. I stepped out and watched her leave. She never looked back at me. That was 3 weeks ago. Later, the police told me Claire had no criminal record. She was clean, but deeply involved in online communities that treated these toys as living beings. They believed she needed psychiatric evaluation. Claire claimed the Labubu line had become her life's purpose. They asked if I wanted to press charges, but I declined. They would likely commit her anyway, so why make it worse? After all, any obsession that destroys rational thought is an illness. I haven't heard from her since. I just hope she gets the help she needs. And to all the Labubu fans out there, please stay far away from me. This took place last Saturday night, right after I finished my first 2 weeks of college, when my roommate Liv became determined to drag me to my very first frat party. I really didn't want to go. I barely knew anyone on campus, and the thought of being surrounded by drunk strangers sounded miserable. But Liv was impossible to say no to. By 9 p.m., I was standing outside the Alpha Beta frat house in one of her tops, trying not to look completely out of place. The party was overwhelming, loud, chaotic, and thick, with the smell of spilled beer and sweat. Music thundered from massive speakers in the backyard, while people danced, laughed, shouted, and played beer pong. I stayed near the edge of the crowd, holding a warm solo cup of jungle juice, and pretending to text when I noticed a guy sitting off by himself. He wore a green hoodie, his hands resting in his lap, feet dangling in the pool, while everyone else tried to impress someone or hook up. He wasn't participating, just watching. I still don't know what made me approach him. Maybe boredom, maybe curiosity. I asked if I could sit, and he nodded, introducing himself as Mason. He told me he was an art major and admitted he didn't really enjoy parties, but liked the atmosphere. There was something strange about him, calm, yet uneasy at the same time. We talked about movies, tattoos, and how ridiculous frat life was, and because he didn't seem like the other guys there, I let my guard down, which turned out to be a huge mistake. Midway through our conversation, he rolled up his sleeve and told me to look. On his forearm was a tattoo of a creature with big round eyes, sharp teeth, and tiny ears, like a demonic rabbit, cartoonish but deeply unsettling. He said its name was Labubu, and explained that he collected every version and that they were basically soulmates. I laughed awkwardly, assuming he was joking, but quickly realized he was completely serious. When I commented that they were creepy kids' toys, he didn't laugh at all, only saying they were misunderstood and mocked by people trying to look cool. Feeling uncomfortable, I told him I needed to find Liv, and walked away, his eyes following me the entire time. By midnight, the party had mostly died down. Liv had disappeared with some guy, and I didn't feel like waiting around, so I started the 10-minute walk back to my dorm with one earbud in. The night was quiet and peaceful, empty sidewalks, a soft breeze, no traffic, and I remember thinking, college might actually be fun. That feeling vanished when unease crept in, and I paused my music to listen. Footsteps were behind me. At first I assumed it was another student, but they didn't fade away. They matched my pace. When I slowed, they slowed. When I stopped, they stopped. I turned around and saw Mason standing under a streetlight about 20 feet back, wearing the same hoodie, his arms stiff at his sides, and his head slightly tilted. I said his name, but he didn't answer. He just smiled, and something about it terrified me. He jerked his left shoulder twice and began chanting in a childish voice, repeating Lu, and my stomach dropped when I realized he was saying Labubu. I screamed, asking what he wanted, as he picked up his pace and called out that I had made Leo sad. I ran. His pursuit sounded wrong, heavy, uneven thuds, like he was running low to the ground, and he screamed as he chased me. My dorm was only a block away, and I sprinted across the lawn, fumbling with my keycard. The first swipe flashed red, and Mason was right there. My hands shaking, I tried again, and the light finally turned green. I yanked the door open and slammed it shut just as his footsteps hit the pavement. He stood outside, visible through the glass, breathing hard, his face blank, but his eyes terrifying. He leaned close and whispered that I'd made Lubu sad and shouldn't have. I backed away, heart pounding, and called campus security. They arrived 10 minutes later, but Mason was gone, and when questioned, he lied straight to their faces, claiming he'd never even met me. With no evidence, nothing was done. I thought it was over, until the next night, around 3 a.m., when I heard something slide across the floor, sat up, and saw an envelope lying there, pushed under my door. Inside was a photograph of me, taken earlier that same night, sitting by the pool beside Mason. In the lower corner, written in red ink, were the words, "Labubu remembers." My hands started trembling. I threw the photo away and checked my lock twice. I barely slept at all. When morning came, I packed a bag and went straight to Liv's dorm, planning to stay there for a few days. But this morning, just before leaving campus, I returned to my room to grab my laptop and nearly screamed when I walked inside. Sitting on my pillow was a pink Labubu toy. Its oversized eyes stared straight at me, and its jagged teeth were pulled into a grin that felt disturbingly real. I dumped it in the trash and immediately changed dorms. I don't know what Mason wants, or if he plans to make my life a living nightmare now, but I do know one thing. I should never have laughed at Labubu. Grief makes people do unthinkable things. It had been 3 weeks since we lost our baby. One moment, we were excited first-time parents, and the next, we were sitting beneath harsh fluorescent lights in a sterile hospital room while a doctor delivered the worst news of our lives. My wife, Madison, didn't cry. She just breathed heavily, staring into nothing. After that, she changed completely. Most days, she wouldn't leave the bed. She barely ate or spoke. I watched her disappear into a haze I couldn't pull her out of. I tried everything, cooking her favorite foods, playing music she once loved, even reading aloud from the baby books we couldn't bring ourselves to throw away. Nothing helped until I brought home a blue Labubu toy. Madison joked that we could put it on a shelf in the baby's room and call it our child's guardian, so I bought one from a reseller and gave it to her that morning. Instantly, it was like she snapped back to reality. Her face lit up as she hugged it tightly, cradling it like it was alive. It seemed to fill the massive emptiness inside her. And at first, I felt relieved. Anything was better than the lifeless stare she'd been giving me. But within hours, comfort twisted into something horrifying. Madison wrapped the Labubu in a tiny blue blanket. Later, I watched her spoon feed it applesauce. By evening, she placed it gently into the crib meant for our baby. I couldn't take it anymore and told her it wasn't real, that it was just a toy. She turned toward me, and for the first time, I was afraid of my wife. Her eyes were bloodshot, filled with hatred. She warned me not to speak like that around our son. I froze, telling her it wasn't our child, but she cut me off. Her lips shook as if she might cry. Then her face contorted with rage as she accused me of being just like the others, insisting she could still feel him. Her breathing grew frantic, and I backed off, convincing myself it was the grief talking, that it would pass. It didn't. That night, I woke to an empty bed and the sound of Madison humming a lullaby throughout the house. I followed her voice to the nursery and found her rocking the Labubu, patting it gently as if putting a baby to sleep. A chill crawled up my spine. The next day, things spiraled. I heard her whispering to the toy, promising that Daddy would hold him soon. I snapped, insisting I wasn't a father to a toy, and tried to take it from her. She screamed, scratched my face, and knocked over the crib, then pointed at me, screaming that I was trying to kill him again. I should have called for help then, I know that now, but I still believed I could fix it. By evening, she had calmed down, sitting quietly in the rocking chair, humming with the toy bundled in blankets. Exhausted, I fell asleep around 10 p.m. and woke up unable to move. My wrists and ankles were tied to the bed frame with strips of baby clothes, and Madison stood beside me holding a scalpel from the emergency baby kit. She placed the Labubu on my chest, its red eyes staring into mine, and asked what kind of father I was, saying our son had been crying all night. She told me she would untie me if I kissed him. Seeing no other choice, I agreed. She smiled, freed me, and together we sat on the floor, rocking and kissing the Labubu like it was our child, while she laughed and cried back and forth. When she finally left to put him to bed, I called the paramedics. I watched as they took my wife away for psychiatric evaluation. When separated from the toy at the hospital, she became violent, kicking and biting until they sedated her. After extensive evaluations, doctors recommended transferring her to a mental facility in Florida, warning that her violent behavior was escalating rapidly. It's been 2 weeks now. She's still being kept at the facility. I go to see her once every week, but most of the time, she doesn't even recognize that I'm there. The doctors say she's completely disconnected from reality and truly believes the toy is the baby we lost. They handed me her belongings in a plain cardboard box. I still haven't opened it, but I already know what's inside. That warped little toy, and every single night, I could swear I hear something scraping and clawing from inside the closet. But maybe it's all just in my head,